Welcome into this Thursday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Week 15, going to be going through the picks for every single game this week. But before that, all season long, heading up to the playoffs, Cash App is sponsoring our locks. We'll track how we're doing each episode, with the winner being presented the Cash App Locks Trophy at the end of the season. Creeping back towards 50% here, JP. 39-42. I was 3-1 last week. You're 30-33. 4-2 last week. Kyle went 2-2. He's kind of tailed off though, but we're got a hotly contested. It's going to be tight here down the stretch. I'm a little upset though, because I went 3-1, but apparently Marcus Mariota has to start the game for it to be a valid bet, according to FanDuel. Some books handle this differently. I feel a little gypped. I thought my rationale was strong. Apparently not strong enough. But you bounce back, and the people don't know just yet, but I've seen your picks for this week, and you're spraying. You're on a comeback warpath here.
This has got to be the week I get above 500. I'm going we're going full send. I'm spraying it almost every game. Just trying to get at least one.
JP, you got 7 picks this week, so be locked in. You'll be dropping them throughout the show. Let's start with what I would call the game of the week. AFC East matchup, rematch from a great game earlier this season. Bills at Patriots. Bills 1.5-point favorites on the road, despite losing that first matchup. 49.5 points is the over-under for this one.
So I've noticed something with the Bills offense lately. Over the last couple of games, it feels like they've leaned a lot more into their play action, which is what you want to do when they run the ball as effectively as they do. But instead of using that play action to attack downfield, which is what a lot of teams do using play action, Josh Allen's air yards per attempt using play action has gone down from 7.8 yards to 4.7. So they're using play action to void areas in the horizontal parts of the field. They're using it to try and get their best players in space. It's to attack with Khalil Shakir. It's to get James Cook open out in the flat. You're getting guys into the flat and short parts of the field where you can use them as winners in that area instead of being explosive down the field, which I thought was a very noticeable change from this offense in the early parts of the season. It felt like they were trying to attack downfield and just nothing was happening. So it feels like this is going to be a very different offense going to New England to face the Patriots. But I also think the Patriots defense is going to be very different because Milton Williams will not be in this game.
That's a very interesting point you make. And one of the, obviously football's a very complicated game. And every move, there's a counter move and then a counter to that counter and so on and so forth. But with play action and, we've talked about, and everyone knows, play action, what you're trying to attack with that run fake. You're trying to get the linebackers to come up to get the space behind them. That's your money. That's where you're trying to spread the holes in the zone. But even when a play action fake doesn't necessarily work and they recognize it, what it does do is everyone knows that's where you're trying to attack. And so you get deeper drops from your linebackers. You get deeper drops from those second level defenders than you would otherwise get from a normal drop back pass. And then what's that leave open? That leaves open that underneath. That leaves open checkdowns, under shallow crossers, things of that nature, that then they have more space to work. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. Obviously, the Bills proven that. I'm very interested in this one for a number of reasons, obviously, because of the big playoff implications, number 1 seed in the AFC, but also just because I think this quarterback matchup is sick. The fact that we get this head-to-head matchup now for seemingly the next decade is something that, we kind of have in the AFC West, but the Chargers really haven't been on sort of, equal footing roster-wise with the Chiefs. We kind of have in the AFC North, but they keep getting hurt with Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Now we definitely feels like we have it in the East. That these two teams are equally sort of matched up, equal-ish at the quarterback. Obviously, Drake may statistically better than Josh Allen this year, but Josh Allen has track record. I'm just pumped to the fact that we get this now. We have another head-to-head matchup that we're going to see 2 times between elite quarterbacks for seemingly the rest of these guys' careers.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I feel like this is sort of for Josh Allen and the Bills, it feels sort of like looking into a mirror a little bit.
Yes, right.
Looking at Drake May is like, oh, like I remember seeing that guy. You remind me of Josh Allen when he was a little younger. But I do think that this game is going to come down to if the Patriots defense can stop the run as effectively as they did the last time they played. And then if the Bills can tackle, they missed 8 tackles the last time the Patriots played them. Stephon Diggs got loose at any moment. But I think what they've done really well since that game, is they've been a little more effective in playing cover 2. They've played a lot more soft zones to try and just get teams to throw the ball quick and rally and tackle. But you got to make the tackle if you're going to rally and tackle. So I'm curious to see if they can get some pass rush, especially Will Campbell out the game. I don't know if Jared Wilson is going to play in this one. So my head is sort of leaning Bills in this one just because of all the important injuries on the Patriots side of the ball. But man, they have to tackle, and you have to tackle effectively in this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to that tackling and who stops the running game better, truthfully. Like, who can take that out of the other team? Because we talked about how good the Bills are themselves, but their run defense quietly has been the second worst in the NFL this season in terms of EPA per rush. You can run the ball on this Buffalo Bills defense if you really want to. And something the Patriots didn't have the first time around was the big play threat. Trayvon Henderson had 6 carries in that first game. He's had double digit in this past 6 games. I'm interested to see if he has a field flipping, game changing sort of play in this one, because I think that's the X factor that wasn't there that can maybe overcome the fact that the left side of your offensive line is a huge issue right now for New England Patriots. But I do think I side with you, and I think the Bills ultimately do win it because I really don't trust the left side of that Patriots offensive line without Will Campbell, without Jared Wilson.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be tough. It's going to be rough if Drake May can overcome not having the left side of his offensive line against the Bills. I'm ready to give him the MVP. Like that. I'm sort of leaning that way anyway. But if they sweep the Bills without their starting left tackle, starting left guard, without a run game that's still been super effective, I think Trayvon Henderson could play a big role in this game as a receiver, especially trying to get guys out in space. But if they're able to win this game, this feels like a potential MVP making performance.
Well, here's the thing. The guy who he's probably going head to head against is facing a very easy matchup in the passing game this week. We'll get to that when we get to the Lions at Rams. But first, we're going to take a quick break. After that, Lions, Rams, Packers, Broncos, the big ones in the Week 15 slate.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
That is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount+.
All right, Packers at Broncos. Not huge playoff implications for this one. I mean, obviously the 1 seed very much in play for both of them, but they're kind of both fighting a little bit of an uphill battle to get that 1 seed with how much easier the Patriots schedule is there, and the fact that the Packers are looking up at both the teams out there in the NFC West. But this feels like, there's so many good matchups in Packers at Broncos. Packers actually favored 2.5 points on the road. The over-under in this one is 42.5. But just to go through some of the numbers in this one, the Broncos defense has the lowest goal-to-go touchdown rate allowed in the NFL this season, the lowest red zone efficiency allowed in the NFL this season, the lowest third down conversion rate allowed in the NFL this season. The Packers, on the flip side, offensively, have the second best offensive scoring rate in terms of goal-to-go situations, second best in the red zone, first on third down conversions. The Broncos have more sacks defensively than any team in the NFL this season, 55, second most, as you see there on the screen, since 1990. Packers, on the other hand, have taken the 4th fewest sacks, with Jordan Love only taken 18 this season. So a lot of really good defense versus really good offense. And then the flip side of the ball, you have Micah Parsons and that Packers pass rush against what's been the best pass protecting offensive line in the NFL this season. Bo Nix taking the fewest sacks of any quarterback with 16. All that being said, I really don't know with this one. I think the Packers being favored on the road is a little bit of a surprise to me. I just think these are both very good football teams, and playing on the road in Denver ain't easy.
This feels like a game where the Packers go in against the Broncos defense, and they're sort of tailor-made to attack the Broncos, because the Broncos have, like, if you have a wide receiver one, we can shut them down effectively. And the Packers are like, well, okay, we don't have a wide receiver one.
Right.
Everybody's the wide receiver one. But I do think what's been noticeable is since Christian Watson's come back from his injury, he leads the Packers in targets. I think his comfort and rapport with Jordan Love, especially downfield, I think that makes him the de facto wide receiver one in this offense, just in the comfort that Jordan Love has throwing the ball to him. But I feel like this game is going to be another one where Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur just attack and hammer man coverage. Jordan Love this season against man coverage has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. 56.3% success rate, 0.43 EPA per drop back. He shreds man coverage. He also shreds the blitz. So I'm curious in this game how Vance Joseph attacks this quarterback who's playing at such a high level against the things that a lot of the Broncos really like to do, which is, they're going to try and send a blitz. And I think Jordan Love, like we talked about, has been so effective in controlling the game and diagnosing the blitz before it happens. But even if they don't pick it up correctly, what Jordan Love will do is he'll drift back. It's drifting in a good way. And I say a lot, Jordan Love breaks a lot of rules as a quarterback. If you are a young quarterback, do not watch Jordan Love, because you will get benched doing things that he does, because he drifts in the pocket. He throws off his back foot, but he's able to do all these things because he's buying himself time and he has a strong enough arm to make all that work. So I wonder if the Broncos are going to be able to make him pay on that side of the ball.
I think that's the biggest thing for the Broncos. They have to get home with that front four. That's it. That is your path to winning this game, because the last 3 weeks, whether it was the Bears, whether it was the Lions, whether it was the Vikings, no one was getting home at Jordan. That is how those games went. That is why the Packers offense was successful in all 3 of those games, is because he had the time to work. I don't know if he does in this one. I've gone back and forth in this one a lot in my head, just because I do think the Packers offense is still, I trust them a lot more than the Broncos offense at this point. But I think it's going to be a low scoring one. I think it's going to be come down to, could be like a 13-10 game with someone with the ball in their hands at the end of the fourth quarter, just because I think both these defenses have the edge over both these offenses. And the Packers specifically, I think the big edge they have over the Broncos is that they are an incredibly good tackling team. They are the best tackling team in the NFL this season. They're the lowest missed tackle rate of anyone. They fly to the ball at the second level. You are not going to get those, swing screens going very far that the Denver Broncos love to run. It's just, that's not going to be a viable option to continually move the ball down the field against this Packers defense. So, if anything, I like the under. I don't know if I love either side, though, in this game. It just feels like it's going to come down to a fluke play or one bounce here at the end.
I would not throw screens against this Packers defense. Javon Bullard is probably the best screen destroyer in the NFL. Like, his quickness triggering on those plays. He doesn't allow himself to be blocked by slot receivers. And then Evan Williams is also a missile coming from downhill. I think the biggest advantage that the Packers have, like you said, they don't miss tackles, and they're also arguably the fastest defense in the NFL. They close space so quickly. And then on top of that, they have Micah Parsons, who, of course, I think the Broncos, have been a very good pass protecting unit. I don't think Mike McGlinchey is seen outside of Max Crosby. But even then, Micah Parsons is on a different level than Max Crosby this season.
Yeah.
He's just been on a tear. So I'm curious how he protects against speed, because that's always been his issue. And how much attention do you devote to Micah Parsons? Because that's sort of where the Packers get you. Because you have to devote all this attention to Parsons. They bring guys from the other side. They rotate them in. Against the Bears, they drop Micah in coverage quite a bit. And I was like, oh, that's fun. They haven't really done that a lot. But I guess I just have more trust in the Packers on both sides of the ball. I think I trust the Broncos defense, but I trust the Packers in their respective matchups. I just think Bo Nix has a tendency to leave some plays on the field. I think he leaves a lot of explosive passes on the field. And I think against this Packers defense, you got to try and take some risks. You cannot just sit there and try and dink and dunk your way down the field, because you're going to end up in 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9. And that's no way to live against this Packers defense.
Injury to note, Josh Jacobs didn't practice yesterday, so he's obviously been hampering that knee for a little bit. So probably still going to play, but may not be at 100%. Sounds like you're leaning Packers. I think I'm going to lean Packers just a little bit as well. But if anything, like I said, I like the under more than anything in this one. Let's get to Lions at Rams. Rams 5.5-point favorites here. 54.5 points is the over-under in this one.
I think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the season. I just, as much as I trust,
that's a high bar. Was it Bears Bengals? I think that was the highest scoring one.
I think it was 49-42. Yeah.
Okay. So what is that? 91 points?
Yeah, I think 91. This game has potential to be the highest scoring game of the season, which of course means it'll end like 16-10. But I do think that the Lions in their big games have come out with different game plans. You know, we talk about how much the Lions play man coverage, but against the Cowboys, they played more zone. They played a lot more zone than man coverage. Their man coverage rate was one of the, I believe, the 3rd lowest of their season against the Cowboys. They played a lot more zone, a lot more soft zone. And because of that, Al-Quadin Muhammad was able to get home and get some pressure. So I'm curious what the defensive game plan is, because you cannot play man coverage against these two receivers, especially given the state of the Lions secondary and their depth in the secondary. As much as I love Amik Robertson, as much as I love DJ Reed, this is not a great matchup. This is just not a good matchup for them. But I do think offensively, the Lions can sort of copy their game plan from the Cowboys game and use it against the Rams, which is a ton of quick game, a ton of play action. Try and slow down this pass rush as much as possible, and then use Jahmyr Gibbs as a receiver. Use these guys in space. Use Jameson Williams to be the fulcrum to open everything else up with his speed downfield. And I think there's a way that you can attack and you can win against this Rams defense that's played really well.
I'm with you there in that I think points are going to be scored. I'm also with you there in that I think the Lions secondary versus Rams receiver matchup is simply too much to overcome. It just, I don't see how you, with what they have right now, obviously now down Brian Branch for the rest of the year, with what they have at cornerback, given the fact that the last 6 weeks, they are 27th against the pass in terms of EPA per play. They've allowed the 2nd most deep completions in the NFL this season. You have Matt Stafford being your other candidate for MVP, neck and neck with Drake May. I don't think they get many stops in this one. And it's going to take the exact same sort of output that we just saw against the Cowboys, but this is a different animal from the Cowboys defense. So much more. The defense is going to make you earn it a lot more. You're going to have, Savone Revel in the secondary basically gifting you multiple big plays in that one. I don't know if it's 5.5. I don't know if the Rams score 5.5, but I just don't see the Lions having the firepower to keep up with the Rams in this one.
It's also no guarantee that Kirby Joseph comes back in this game. He just started practicing. So you're potentially down both your starting safeties against a Rams offense that loves to hammer those areas, and you need sort of those erasers in the middle of the field. I do wonder if this is a game where do the Rams go hyper 11 personnel, or is this one where you try and go back to their 13 personnel and force those safeties to cover, especially because Terrence Ferguson has started to grow in his role in the offense. Colby Parkinson's playing at a high level. There's just so many things that are really interesting about this game. We haven't even talked about the individual matchup of potentially Byron Young and Jared Verse against Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, where both Decker and Sewell, I think they both are very good at anchoring against power. Decker's a little less so as he's gotten older.
I was gonna say Decker's like you've seen some.
Yeah, Decker as he's gotten older is he's sort of fallen off in that area, but this is not a game where you don't want to be able to anchor because both those guys will blow you away. They're going to be super strong up the middle. And what I love about the Rams defense, especially their pass rush, is everybody on the defensive line is like that. They all win with power, and that makes all their stunts and pass rush games so effective because they're all such effective loopers. They're all such effective crashers on these blitzes. So if they can protect, I wonder if this is a game where Jared Verse lines up as a spinner a little bit, sort of like what Micah Parsons did against the Lions. How much trust, as Dan Campbell, how much trust do you have in that offensive line to attack downfield?
Because even last week, I mean, even in that Cowboys game, Quinnen was still like this close to a few big plays. They still had issues there right up the middle of that offensive line. And that was against really defense that doesn't bring it from as many angles as this Rams defensive line just like flat out doesn't. So all those reasons, I'm picking the Rams. Sounds like you're picking the Rams as well. Let's get to Colts and Seahawks. Seahawks are now 13.5-point favorites. Obviously, a little backup quarterback action functioned into that. 42.5 points is the over-under here. God, I hope we see Phillip Rivers. I need it. I need a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers shot putting go balls against the Seahawks defense.
I think we are going to get Phillip Rivers.
Yes.
Riley Leonard was a full participant in practice, but when Shane Steichen was asked who's going to start at quarterback and Phillip Rivers is going to start at quarterback, he sort of just said, we'll see, which you don't really say if your starting quarterback, who's also 23 years old, is actually healthy. And a part of what Riley Leonard does so well and why he works in this offense is he uses his legs. If his knee isn't fully healthy, that negates the entire advantage of having Riley Leonard out there over Phillip Rivers. Look, man, if you trot Phil out there against the Seahawks team, they might fold him in half. Like,
Did he know what he was getting into? Did he look at their schedule, you think?
I'm excited, but like, man, you don't do that to him. Don't do that to him. You come on. Like, let's please help this old man out. And you're going to trot him out there against probably the deepest defensive line in the NFL, the one that has arguably like they're top 5 in every defensive line category. He sacks, they're top 5 in it. Quarterback hits, pressure rate, pass rush win rate. They do everything well up front. And look, man, I hope Phillip Rivers has a good time, and I hope we get like some really cool Phillip Rivers moments. He's going to hit like a sail route that I'm like, okay, I'm bought in, but good luck, man.
What I want to know is, so Phil's been on the sideline 5 years now. Obviously, 2020 was last year. He wasn't a disaster in 2020. It's not like he went out and everyone's like, oh, he had to go out. He was capable. It wasn't it was probably like what Joe Flacco kind of looked like, this past year, where it's like, hey, he could probably still keep it going. But why, over the last 5 years, obviously been retired, why was like this the situation that brought him back? 5 years later, over the past 5 years, there wasn't like one other situation where he's like, I kind of want to come back there. Like there wasn't anything else that it was this to play against this Seahawks team in Seattle. That was the one that like really got him going to get him to return to football.
Well, I think there was a rumor that when Brock Purdy towards like UCL during their playoff run, there was a rumor that Phillip Rivers was going to be one of the guys Kyle Shanahan calls. And it feels like Phillip Rivers, like he's like the ringer for any of the any quarterback or any offense that's making the playoff run and just needs a warm body to throw out there because he's not going to completely stink it up. But again, even that was 3 years ago or 2 years ago at this point. Even like he looked like Joe Flacco the last time he played. That was in 2021. Like this is dangerous, man. You look like Joe Flacco 5 years ago. I shudder to think of what Joe Flacco would look like throwing the ball 5 years from now.
All I was going to say is I can't wait. For the Colts, they obviously need it. Their playoff percentage, they have the second biggest swing in a win versus a loss this week. 51% chance of making playoffs with a win, 18% with a loss. You see how their playoff odds have gone from almost 100%. I mean, obviously not 100% because they're probably not going to make playoffs at this point, but 98% in week 12. 98% in week 12. Obviously haven't won a game since then, may not win a game the rest of the season, given how difficult their schedule is. And yeah, 13.5 is a completely valid number. I do not want to touch the Colts, even at 13.5, even at a crazy high number, because I said after last week, Seahawks have the biggest point differential in the NFL. They are arguably the best team in the NFL, and especially that defense. If it's Phillip Rivers, if it's Riley Leonard, I don't know if they reach 10. It's going to be hard for them to get to double digits in this one.
Something that I am noting for the Seahawks offense is since about week 8, week 9, Sam Darnold's turnover-worthy throw rate has doubled. Like it feels like he is some of the best things that Sam Darnold does is he's aggressive going to throw the ball. He's going to throw the ball in tight windows. But his turnover-worthy throw rate has doubled in that same span. I need him to stop being reckless. For the sake of the Seahawks, not only like playoff potential, but Super Bowl potential, he's got to tone it down a little bit. He's got to know when to take the check down, when to fold him a little bit, because he's turned the ball over. And I think some of those are a lot of that is factoring in the 4 interception meltdown against the Rams, but those are the type of teams that you're going to face if you want to win the Super Bowl. So I hope he doesn't put the ball in harm's way as much against this Colts defense, where Lou Anarumo probably knows he's going to have to bring out his like A1 level game plan to help a 44-year-old get a win.
That is actually a very underrated storyline. Curious to see is Lou Anarumo's game plan, because we pretty much talked about it. This offense comes and goes as Jack Smith-Njigba. Like you know going into the Seahawks where you have to stop to have a chance to stymie him. It is him. If you can get Jack Smith-Njigba like the Vikings did a few weeks ago to not have a catch until midway through the third quarter, chances are you'll have the Seahawks offense kind of under wraps. They won't be having a bunch of big explosive plays from Cooper Kupp and other guys. If that's, if you have done a good enough job in Jackson Smith-Njigba. I'm not saying you're completely shut down, but you know what you got to do. So I do think that's going to be interesting, but I don't think the Colts have the pass rush to really alter Sam Darnold into making those boneheaded decisions, into giving you 3-4 picks like he's done over the course of his career. And then you might say, the Colts can maybe grind it out in the ground. They're facing the best run defense since 2019. The Seahawks are the best run defense in 2019. Do you know who was in 2019? The team that's the better defense over the course of the season in terms of EPA per rush than the Seahawks unit?
2019. Ooh. Was it the Bears?
It was not. It was the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah.
They had that run, like obviously through the Super Bowl, where they were just like, yeah, you don't run the Bucks. You used to not run the Bucks. Now, not as much, but the B of A effect way back when.
Something else to note for this game, we talked about a little bit with the Vikings game plan was shutting down Jackson Smith-Njigba until like the third quarter. Charvarius Ward's not going to play in this game. He has suffered another concussion. This is his third concussion this season.
Oh my gosh.
I feel bad for him because like everything that he's gone through to get back to playing, I don't know if he's going to be a factor into the rest of the season. Sauce Gardner also not going to play in this game. DeForest Buckner not going to play in this game. Lou Anarumo's going to have to cook up a masterclass if they're going to keep this one close.
It's hard to cook up a masterclass when your ingredients are like leftover, slop meat. It's just, that's what you're working with, unfortunately. Sorry. Let's get to charge set Chiefs. Chiefs 5.5-point favorites. 41.5 points is the over under, despite the fact that the Chiefs lost the first time around this season in this matchup. How do we see it going?
We need to stop making the Chiefs favorites
Yeah,
And
right.
also, we need to ban Andy Reid from using RPOs. That's the entire this offense is so RPO reliant. The biggest issue with this Chiefs team is they always have to scheme guys open. They always have to scheme them open. And then you only can do that using RPOs and quick game. Everybody can just sit on that, and it makes offense so hard. There's a point in the Texans game where I believe it's 3rd and 4, and they're running all slants. It's empty. They're all running all slants. And they're trying to get Travis Kelce open against Azeez Al-Shaair. Normally a great game plan. But Travis Kelce is not the same Travis Kelce. He gets completely blanketed by Al-Shaair. Everybody else, there's no separation. When you go back and watch the Chiefs tape offensively, there's no separation anywhere. Nobody is winning downfield. And of course, the Texans defense is the Texans defense. But when teams know that you can play cover one or man coverage against this defense and there's nothing open, it's really hard to win in that way. And again, they try and do all these different things. They try and get under center and run play action, but because they don't run the ball under center, nobody falls for the run fake. They used to be really good at passing out of 13 personnel because they were actually a threat running the football out of it, but they don't run the football. This offense frustrates me. It baffles me to see how an offense with Patrick Mahomes and the talent that they have feels so toothless and feels so lifeless at this point of the season. It's just ban the RPO in general, but specifically ban the RPO from Kansas City.
The Chiefs, since the return of Rashee Rice week 7, it all came back. We thought we were going to see this untapped potential of an offense that was going to return it to its Tyreek Hill glory. Mahomes averaging 7.2 yards per attempt. He has the most interceptions in the NFL over that span, 84.8 passer rating. He's added almost as much EPA on scrambles as he has through the air with his arm. And he has only a 38.7% completion percentage. Said percentage there too many times on deep balls. Hasn't even been good down the football field. All the speed. Multiple guys, 3 guys who ran 4.2s coming out. They can't even get the deep ball going. And now they're going up against Chargers defense that has the second fewest deep balls allowed in the NFL this season. I don't know, man. That 5.5 is too much. I like the Chargers in this one.
I do too. I like the Chargers in this one. Something that I think is going to play a very big role in this one, especially for the Chargers offense, is when they add 6 offensive linemen on the field, when the Chargers go jumbo, they are 7th in yards per play with 6 offensive linemen on the field. They can get into heavy personnel with bringing Scott Matlock on the field. They bring an extra offensive lineman on the field. They bring their blocking tight ends on the field, and they can just hammer teams. That's what they did against the Eagles. Some of their big plays were out of that jumbo look. But the biggest thing is, despite being blitzed and despite being pressured against the blitz this season at one of the highest rates I've ever seen in the NFL. According to NFL Pro, Justin Herbert has the 4th highest completion percentage and is the 8th most yards per attempt against the blitz this season. He's scrambling at a really high rate and scrambling really effectively, but he also does that because he has to, because this team is going to give up an insta pressure. So I'm curious how the Chiefs address the Justin Herbert scrambles part of this game, because I don't think that that's part of the game that they thought they had to defend in previous years with Herbert under center.
Yeah, Herbert and this Chargers offensive line has allowed the most hits. I guess not Herbert. The Chargers offensive line has allowed the most hits of any offensive line in the NFL, tied with the Cleveland Browns. And if you watch the Browns offensive line, you know that's not great company to be in this season. So I don't love the Chargers, obviously. I think it's just going to be a close one. I think the fact 5.5 is too much because Chiefs haven't covered 5.5 since October, flat out. Like it's been a while since this Chiefs team actually looked like what we had hoped we would see when they had the full complement of weapons. So yeah, all that being said, I like the Chargers, and the Chargers win this one. It's like good night, Kansas City. That is your playoff hopes down the drain. So, we've been saying it's a must win for the past couple weeks. The Chiefs hasn't happened. This is like, hey, final door.
This is your last shot.
This is actually is. You have zero chance if you lose this football. Let's get to AFC North, where the Ravens travel to Cincy, a game we saw just a few weeks ago. Ravens 2.5-point favorites. 51.5 points is the over-under, but you just wrote about the Ravens this week, so break it down for us.
I wrote about the Ravens this week, and I just said, like, that time is running out for them to find some solutions on both sides of the ball. But offensively, since Lamar Jackson has come back, it hasn't felt like the same offense. In fact, I'd argue that it's been worse since Lamar Jackson came back from injury. Their points per drive has dropped to 1.96, which is just above the Chargers, who, like we said, might be starting both of us at tackle in their game on Sunday. Their Lamar Jackson and this offense, their percentage of drives that end in a touchdown is tied with the Texans, which is something you never want to be at. You know, if you're tied with the Texans offensively, you've done something wrong. And then their EPA per play, Lamar Jackson's EPA per play, is tied with the Arizona Cardinals on offense, who are starting Jacoby Brissett. The biggest issue for this offense is it's sort of highlighting how weak and how flawed this team is when Lamar Jackson can't paper mache it over by being incredible. You know, they've lost Patrick McCarry, they've lost Kevin Zeitler in 2 consecutive free agencies, and now they're starting Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele at both guard spots, and both guys have been awful. Part of the reason why they struggled in the red zone is because they can't sustain any blocks, and they can't get any push up front. They move the ball well between the 20s, but once they get to the red zone, it just feels like they have a lack of focus. And that lack of focus travels to the defensive side of the ball, as well as just not being good up front. Without Nnamdi Madubuike, their pressure rate without blitzing is one of the worst in the league. I believe it's 30.4%. And so you have to blitz a lot, but the problem with all the blitzes is they bust a coverage every single week. They bust a coverage like against the Steelers, the Jalen Warren touchdown. Jalen Warren's wide open. Pat Freiermuth is also wide open. Aaron Rodgers could have chosen whichever one, and they probably would have scored a touchdown on the play. So, again, it just feels like these issues won't get fixed until after the season. But if they don't make a playoff run, I don't know. It kind of feels like this might be it for John Harbaugh.
To go back to the red zone stats for just a second, because last year this was so far and away the number one red zone offense in the NFL. It was one of the best red zone offenses of all time. 75% of their red zone drives ended in touchdowns. That's 45% this year. They're 30th. That should, like, that tells me though, like, that's the most obvious thing about that is that Lamar is not Lamar. You can't go from that. That's not just play calling. That's not just, the offensive line's not the same unit. It's that Lamar cannot make the second rate. He does not have the physical wherewithal to make those second reaction plays in the way he did last year. Just flat out doesn't since that injury. Because if you have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and they're healthy, you are not the 30th best offense in red zone efficiency. I don't care how many bad breaks you have. I don't care how many times you fumble at the goal line, whatever. You would not be, in conversation with some of the worst offenses in the NFL. So he still didn't practice. He didn't practice again yesterday. He's still on that weird schedule of he doesn't practice early in the week, only does later in the week. So something's still wrong there. Like, even if he was fully healthy, this would be seeming like an equal footing game. I like the Bengals a lot, especially at home here. Yes, the Ravens have their backs against the wall. They have the biggest swing in terms of playoff percentage with a win versus with a loss. 48% with a win, 12% with a loss, basically eliminating them even if with a loss in this one. Bengals probably have a better chance of making the playoffs if they win this game than the Ravens do. All that being said, I like the Bengals.
Unless Lamar Jackson is fully healthy, or like they give him like a Senzu bean before the game, I like the Bengals in this one. Something else to note, Lamar Jackson has scrambled at the lowest rate of his career this season. He's only carried the ball in terms of scrambles and design runs. He's only averaging 4.6 carries a game since returning from injury. His career numbers are 8.9 carries. So you're cutting that in half. And that matters so much to this offense because of his legs. He can open up so many different things for the offense. His gravity as a runner opens up running lanes for Derrick Henry. Against the Steelers, TJ Watt would just come flying down the line of scrimmage to tackle Derrick Henry for 2-yard gains because Lamar's not pulling the ball. Lamar's not keeping it on read options right now because he doesn't feel like he's 100%. And then on the scrambles, you have so much more of a Rolodex of plays with Lamar's legs healthy. You can call longer developing plays. You can call these designed explosives because Lamar can create. But without that, and with the offensive line being as bad as they are up the middle, they have to rely on quick game as much. And now you're sort of you're trying to game everybody, and that really doesn't work as much between the 20s or in the red zone.
We've discussed a lot about the Bengals and what changes they should make after the season should things go south and then went south. But we really haven't talked about the Ravens and if things really do go south and if they end this season with a below 500 record and don't make the playoffs after early on we're saying AFC is right for the picking. This should be their year to roll through it and make the Super Bowl. Obviously some injuries played a factor in that, but do we see changes, whether it's the front office, whether it's at head coach, coordinators, position coaches? Do we think we see any moves made if this team misses the playoffs? Or is it just chalk it up to injury luck didn't go against us this year?
If they miss the playoffs, I do think John Harbaugh is gone. I do.
Okay.
I think that there's just a lack of focus with this team. There's so many inexcusable losses. There's so many indefensible losses. There's so many just in-moment coaching decisions that John Harbaugh usually does really well in that he just hasn't. And sometimes the magic is gone. Sometimes you just don't got it with a team. It was a great run for John Harbaugh. But if this team misses the playoffs, I feel like something has to change. I feel like Zach Orr is 100% gone, regardless of what happens. Todd Monken, I don't know because I think that you're going to give him the benefit of the doubt given how good the offense has looked before. Mm-hmm. But if John Harbaugh's gone, man, you kind of got a clean house.
Yeah, it's not to say that he's the entire problem, but I think sometimes it just is time. Sometimes the growth of the locker room has gone the wrong way. And I think John Harbaugh would get a head coaching job tomorrow if it were to, but it would be like Andy Reid in Philly. Sometimes it just is time to part ways. All right, we'll take a quick break. After that, going to get to the rest of the slate.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Jets at Jaguars. Jaguars are 13.5-point favorites. 41.5 points is the over-under, but the number's so big, the total's so low because Tyrod Taylor's still hurt. Justin Fields still hurt. Brady Cook is your only option here at this point, and he's banged up.
Well, they do have a backup. Do you want to know who the Jets' backup quarterback is?
Yes, I'm going to laugh. Tell me.
Adrian Martinez.
Oh, no.
Is the backup quarterback.
I watched Adrian Martinez lose to Illinois when Nebraska came to Illinois. I think it was Adrian Martinez back in 2020, the first game of the whatchamacallit, Brett Bielema era. That was a week 0 treat. And never in a million years, I think after that game, he would be starting an NFL game. But he could.
I saw him lose games in the UFL, and now he's potentially going to be playing NFL snaps, in the regular season. Man, I said before the show, I was going to try and bet on every game. I'm not betting on this one because as much as I like Jaguars minus 13.5, I know that I cannot, as much as I'm a Jaguars fan, don't trust that number. not at all. Trevor Lawrence was surprisingly
Come on, you have little faith. They're going to do it. They're going to pull it out.
I have faith they're going to win. I don't think it's going to be 13.5. They really have to just go in and hammer this team. If you are a legit playoff team, go in and just handle business.
That's how I feel. That's like it's 13.5. I don't want to say it feels low because it's 13.5 points, but it feels like if the Jags are the team that still has a chance to 1 seed, the team that should win the AFC South, given their schedule, if they are that, and you're facing Brady Cook or Adrian Martinez, that should be a cakewalk for you, in my opinion.
Yeah, you go and win this game handily. Trevor Lawrence limited in practice yesterday with an ankle injury. I do think that's going to be something to monitor, especially because the offense is sort of at its best when they use Trevor Lawrence's legs. And I think that's sort of an underrated part of his game where he's not a stationary guy. Like he's a dual threat. The Duke, he's like 6'6" and like can run. So I like having that as a part of the offense. I want to see more Brian Thomas Jr. explosives. I think in this game, you can really start to unlock it a little more, really let it fly. I think that this game, like we said, like the Jets are awful. I think the Jaguars should win this game going away, especially without the Jets having their top 2 quarterbacks.
All right, let's get to Cardinals at Texans. Texans 9.5-point favorites. 42.5 points is the over-under. Some big injuries for Arizona. Likely no Marvin Harrison Jr. and potentially yet again, and then potentially no Paris Johnson, left tackle for the Arizona Cardinals. Probably their only good offensive lineman. He didn't practice yesterday, which means, hey, you're going up against the team that has the highest pressure rate in the NFL when rushing 4 guys.
Since week 9, Jacoby Brissett has been hit the most of any quarterback. Good luck, man. This is going to be a game where like you got to ice up. You have to protect. Like you got to put Jacoby Brissett in bubble wrap before this game. Like you can't just leave him out there to just get hammered. I do think the Texans are sort of uniquely built to slow down Trey McBride because I think they have Jalen Petre as sort of their tight end guy, and they have Kalen Bullock roaming over the top, so it sort of negates some of the explosives. I am really curious to see if Michael Wilson can keep doing this cool stuff he's doing at the catch point against these Texans defensive backs. And then flipping at Riverside, I actually think despite the numbers sort of looking rough for CJ Stroud, I actually think he's played well in his 2 games coming back from injury. He's negated a lot of mistakes by the Texans in pass protection. He's made a lot of guys miss. You think about that Chiefs game where he's rolling out, throws the ball to Nico Collins. He's getting the ball out. He's getting the ball out outside of structure. He's creating those plays with his legs. And I think because of that, now you have sort of an identity if you're the Texans. You have Ed Ingram and Trent Brown mashing in the run game. You have CJ Stroud winning outside the pocket. Lean into that. And I think the more they lean into that, the more they find themselves as we get closer and later into the season. So I'm really curious if they can lean into that some more against, I mean, it might not have looked that way last week, but the Cardinals defense is talented. The Cardinals defense is kind of good. So against the kind of good defense, like sort of want to see what happens.
So one of my locks, I have the under in this one, 42.5 as one of those. To your point about Stroud, he's 5th in the NFL this year, and EPA added with his legs. So on scrambles, he's 5th in the NFL, 5th most. I don't know about 9.5, but I just think it's a low slog, and I think the Texans kind of kick this Cardinals offense's ass. I don't see them getting to 10 points in this one, truthfully. Let's get the Browns at Bears. Bears 7.5-point favorites. 38.5 points is the over-under. We have a little weather here to note in Chicago at Soldier. Game time kickoff projected to be 11 degrees with 13-mile-per-hour winds sustained. Anyone who's been in 11 degrees with 13-mile-per-hour winds knows that sucks. Absolute nuts. And that is not good for passing attacks, I'll say. So that probably favors the Chicago Bears, given that that's where they've been making so much hay over the past half season.
As someone who lived in Chicago for a year and also did not expect the wind chill to be as bad as it was,
so bad. It's all about the wind.
Kicks your ass, man. You think like, oh, the weather outside is like 50 degrees. It should be fine. Boom, wind chill. Now it's 30. and you're outside with a sweater, no jacket. Good luck.
I will take, my brother actually was just talking, because he was at the Packers game last week, and it was like 16 or something at kickoff. And he was like, it was actually great because there's no wind. He's like, 16 feels great with no wind, but 30 with wind feels horrendous. 11 with wind is, I mean, it stinks. A windy 11 degrees is truly like, you don't want to have any part of your body visible to the outside. It's gonna suck.
And the biggest thing is, in those games where it's windy and it's cold, every hit hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts getting hit in the cold. This feels like one of those games from like the NFL films, like the bum 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 bum. I think it's gonna be one of those games. Pray for Ozzie Trapilo. He's going to see Myles Garrett a lot in this game. I don't know how much they're going to throw the ball.
I was going to say, we talked about them not wanting to drop back pass after basically the first two series and how it looked last week against the Packers. Do they even give them a series, or do they even try? Is it just 100% play action rate or run rate this week?
You gotta,
why even do it?
Even using play action, you got to boot them away from Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
Don't run play action that way. Boot them away. Quick game. I don't even know if, because of the wind and the cold, I don't even know if they're going to throw the ball that much. I for sure know the Browns are not going to throw the ball. They're going to try and shorten this game as much as possible. Expect a lot of Quinshon Judkins, and I'd expect a lot of Kyle Monangai in this game. I think Monangai is more of a hammer between the tackles. I think he's going to try and like loosen up the defense, especially because the Browns gave up a couple of explosive runs last week. I think the Bears win this one. I do think this is a low scoring. This feels like a 1950s football game between the Browns and the Bears at Soldier Field with the wind and the cold. This feels like a real like throwback football game. So I think the Bears win.
I think they do win as well. They need to win. They have a lot riding on this one in terms of playoff percentage. They should win. They're 7.5 point favorites. But when you mentioned Monangai, my ears perked up because he's actually one of my locks. I have him over 51.5 rushing yards as one of my locks. I'm right there with you. I think in that sort of weather, you want the back that's going to stick his nose into linebackers and make them not want to do it again the next play. Make them when the fourth quarter comes around and it's still, it's getting even colder. You want them to be thinking twice about whether or not they want to fill in the hole. Monangai is the type of back that'll do that. All right, Panthers at Saints. Panthers 2.5 point favorites. The over-under is 40.5 for this one. Call it a must-win for the Panthers, but it's not really. It's really just the Bucs games at the end of the season are the must-wins, but definitely one that they would like to have a feather in their cap here, given their record against the South this season.
I say this one is a must-win because there's no shot that a team that loses twice to the Saints should be allowed in the playoffs. I'm sorry. If they lose to the Saints, Roger Goodell's got to step in. You know what we said last week, that there should be like an all-star team from the AFC North that makes the playoffs? We should do that for the NFC South if the Panthers lose to the Saints. Don't give me one team. Give me like the skill position players of the Falcons.
I was going to say, like, what are you taking from the Panthers, though?
The Panthers? Oh, man.
Just Tetairoa McMillan.
I'll take Tetairoa McMillan.
Maybe their interior O-line.
I'll take their interior O-line. Maybe Rico Dowdle. Maybe Dave Canales. Maybe Dave Canales can call plays. We're gonna have to cobble it together. We're gonna have to really.
They don't have a lot of like fully formed units on this Panthers team that you're for sure taking against everyone else.
Yeah, we're really have to scrape by. But I actually think that Tyler Shuck has played pretty well lately, and I think that it's sort of, I'm not gonna say symptomatic, but it is symptomatic of a quarterback that's shown that he can grow over time. Because the stuff that he was doing against the Rams when he first started playing, that was rough. That was really bad. But he's grown a lot. I think he has shown that he can win with his legs and scrambling and doing second reaction stuff, which is something I didn't think he had, especially at Louisville. But you just see more confidence throwing the ball downfield, more confidence creating under pressure. And as that grows, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be the future of the Saints. He's 26 years old. But I do think he's played himself into giving himself another shot at starting quarterback next season. Give him a full year, see what happens. Maybe Kellen Moore is still around. And if things go great, cool. You have your starting quarterback. If not, like, you're going to be at the top of the draft anyway. And
I'm very
that's
excited to watch him.
years. So you'll finally be able to get the guy you want.
I'm excited to see him this week because this should be kind of like a modicum of what it will look like when the situation around him is better in New Orleans, because the Panthers and their pass rush, it's, by pretty much every metric, a bottom 3 unit. They have the fewest quarterback hits all season. They don't get to opposing passers. That's not something that when you're dropping back, and we talked about the Saints and their passing offense and how they put their offense, they trust their offensive line probably more than they should. This is a game where you could probably trust your offensive line against this Panthers front four. So he might have some confidence in this one, in those guys up front. And I just want to see how it looks when that's the case. So 2.5-point favorites for the Panthers. I'm not betting. They're the team that's in the playoff hunt. I'm not betting it. I have no interest in touching the Panthers 2.5 because I don't think they're that distinctly better of the team, and they're on the road. And I don't think they have that distinctly better of the quarterback right now with the up and down nature of Bryce Young of late.
I sort of like the Panthers in this game, mainly because I think they just split with some of their division opponents, especially the Saints. And I just think they're going to be able to find a little more of a groove offensively against this Saints defense, who has quietly played a lot better since the first half of the season. But I think it's going to be really close, actually.
Let's get to Titans at 49ers. 49ers, 12.5-point favorites. 44.5 points is the over-under. What do we anything you want to talk about in this one?
Cam Ward's played a little better. I think he's negating pressure a little better. He's not taking his long holding the ball. He's throwing the ball quicker. Maybe that was because they're playing Cleveland and he didn't want to get hit by Myles Garrett. But I think he's played a little bit better. I think he's played better than what his numbers will suggest this season. It's just everything else around him is sort of falling apart. But I do think in this game, it just feels like the 49ers are going to take a hammer to the Titans offensively. Kyle Shanahan's having one of the best offensive coaching seasons of his career. I think this is going to be a game where Brock Purdy isn't pressured, so he's not going to do a lot of the stupid stuff that Brock Purdy does. But I just don't think the Titans have enough on the defensive side of the ball to even make this game close.
I think the one interesting thing to me is the fact that we have quietly seen or are seeing the last hurrah from a lot of the old guard of running backs in the NFL. I think this is basically the last year we're going to see Christian McCaffrey handle this utterly ridiculous load that he's handling, because he's already, in terms of running efficiency, the 49ers rushing offense is bad this year. He's like 3.5 yards per carry so far this season. The last we might see of Saquon, the last we might see of Derrick Henry, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, maybe Josh Jacobs. It's like, I guess we didn't see Joe Mixon this year, but like that kind of old wave of guys who were the stalwart running backs. It feels like we're going to be going into next year. I don't want to say not talking about any of them, but with the understanding that they're not force multipliers, they're not game changers, they are not the guys that you are going to rely upon to make a difference for you going forward.
I would argue that of those guys, like, none of them are currently the best running back in the NFL, which is a good sign because of how much running back talent is in the league. But yeah, it just sort of feels like this might be the last time we get Christian McCaffrey at this volume. Derrick Henry hasn't had the best year simply because of everything that's going on in Baltimore. Same with Saquon in Philadelphia. And everybody else just can't stay healthy. And it's sort of the unfortunate shelf life of running backs. But I think the running back position is in a really good spot because you have
this draft was so sick. This year's draft,
Yeah.
This past year's draft, not the upcoming one's kind of ass, but this past year's was great.
This past year's draft class was sick. You have a bunch of very good running backs in that class. Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs already sort of spearheading the future of the running back spot. And then you have some guys that are sort of late bloomers. You have a Travis Etienne playing really well. Javonte Williams is playing awesome. So you're getting all these cool contributions from everybody else. So I think the running back position is in a good spot. I really do. And it's not like those guys sort of age gracefully out.
All right, let's take a break. After that, we got 5 more games to hit in a full Week 15 slate.
The crowd loves champions. Gladiator 2 is an epic spectacle.
To amuse you is my only wish.
The glory is yours, not mine.
Very good.
Gladiator 2, rated R, now streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, Raiders at Eagles. Eagles 11.5-point favorites at home. 38.5 points is the over-under. Really the only storyline to care about, reason to watch this game. Can the Eagles score some points? Can this offense actually look like a competent, playoff-worthy, Super Bowl-worthy offense? That's it, because Kenny Pickett looks like he'll be starting for the Las Vegas Raiders in this one.
Kenny Pickett revenge game. Let's get it started. Let's get a Kenny Pickett revenge game cracking.
One of my locks is his under. Just a quick aside there. 186.5. I don't think it's happening. If Geno Smith couldn't do it, he ain't doing it.
186. That's kind of high for Kenny Pickett. I need this offense to start executing. And I think the biggest thing to going back and watching that game was the ideas were there. The passing game concepts were there. Jalen Hurts was just off. Like, Jalen Hurts was missing a lot of throws. I think that some of the routes, one of the interceptions, the tip one, A.J. Brown should have caught it. Like that. That's part of why it's so difficult to talk about this passing offense, because part of it is, Kevin Patullo's not really scheming it up. Part of it is Jalen Hurts just kind of, I don't think Jalen Hurts is showing his limits as a passer. And a part of it is A.J. Brown's not the same A.J. Brown. And Devontae Smith slips on a pass. And now the margin for error is so thin in this offense, especially the passing game, that if somebody messes up, it's not an incompletion. It's an interception. And it's a game-changing play. So I want to see if they can execute some of the concepts a little better, because I do think they threw the ball a lot more than they recently have. So I wonder if this is sort of a change in being like, okay, we're heading into the playoffs. We need this passing game firing on all cylinders, given the state of our run game.
I wonder if any Philly radio host, and I'm sure someone has, but Jalen Hurts got married this offseason. He won a Super Bowl. Does he want it as badly? Is Jalen Hurts, is he checked out? Is that what it is? I need someone on Philly radio to come up with that take and workshop it better than me. This is my forte. This is my wheelhouse. I don't do things like this. So someone take that content and roll with it.
I feel like somebody has definitely done that in Philadelphia. I feel like that's got to be like right in the wheelhouse. I'm sure they started doing that. They started doing that after the Giants loss. I'm pretty sure. So I think that this offense just needs a little bit more. They just got to execute. Like the ideas, I'm not going to say Kevin Patullo's a wizard, but some of their baseline concepts are there. They just got to execute them. And if Lane Johnson doesn't play in this game, I'm worried a little bit about the Max Crosby aspect of it. But again, you're playing Kenny Pickett and you're at home and it's going to be cold. Put up some points and get out of there with a win.
I think it's Commanders at Giants. Giants 2.5-point favorites, despite currently slotted to draft league number 1 overall, right? They only have 2 wins. Let me recheck on that. Yeah, number 1 overall. I'm doing a mock draft on Sunday. I should know things like this. 46.5 points is the over-under. A big reason for that, though, no Jaden Daniels, who officially not playing after re-injuring the same elbow that he dislocated early on this season. No Brian Cox either, defensive line coach for the New York Giants, who in one of the weirder stories this week got fired because he argued over having to sit in a different spot than usual on the plane, on the flight home from their last game. I'm guessing that was a symptom of probably more things going on, but both teams a little dysfunctional right now.
It's been one of those seasons for the Giants. Like, you can't win for losing. I do feel like, I think it was last year or a couple of years ago when the Giants had the first overall pick and then just won games at the end of the season, and that took them out of the first overall pick. I got a feeling it's gonna happen again. I got a feeling they're gonna win some games to finish the season. They played Vegas, Minnesota, and Dallas, including this Washington game without Jaden Daniels. I think they're gonna play themselves out of that number 1 overall pick, play themselves out of getting potentially a haul for that first overall pick. So the Commanders lose this game. I really just don't want to see I want to see some changes to this Commanders team, both in the personnel and in the coaching staff, because you can't keep going on like this. You can't keep trotting this out. You can't keep trotting Bobby Wagner out there and expecting things to be different.
Yeah, the Giants, I was optimistic. I thought they had put together a much better roster this season. But I was not optimistic about just the fact that we had seen the decision-making from this front office, from this coaching staff in the years prior. Lame duck staffs giving the prove it year to a staffs. Has it ever worked out? It always doesn't work. It never. It's like, hey, they've sucked at coaching for 4 years, besides the 1 year where Daniel Jones ran for 700 yards and they snuck into the playoffs with still not a great record. Besides that 1 year, they were terrible. They underperformed every single year. Why was this the year they were going to turn around? I unfortunately bought in a little more than I should have, but the ownership definitely should not have bought in to this, and I think they're paying for it.
Yeah, I think this is the year they just completely clean house. I think they gotta just get everything out and try and start new with a new GM, new head coach. You can't let Joe Shane pick the head coach anymore because those rarely work.
Yep.
So I'm curious where they go in the offseason because they should be able to get a good head coach given what they have on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got to work with Joe Shane, I don't know if coaching candidates are willing to line up for that job.
Just stay the hell away from Marcus Freeman. Leave him at Notre Dame. Don't touch him.
That would be incredible.
Oh, I love Marcus Freeman. He's the coolest coach in college football. He cannot go to the NFL. I need him for my sanity. All right, let's get to the Vikings at Cowboys. Cowboys 6.5-point favorites. 47.5 points is the over/under in this one. Cowboys still a very outside chance of making the playoffs. Let me find the number on this one, and then you discuss it.
So the biggest thing for this game is Brian Flores versus Dak Prescott's going to be so cool. It's going to be so fun watching because Dak Prescott is, at this point in his career, a supercomputer at quarterback. He has seen almost everything. He is such a quick processor at the quarterback spot that he's able to make decisions and get the ball out quickly and find explosives down the field where you think there aren't explosives. But against Brian Flores, Flores can force opponents into making mistakes. He can force them into seeing things that they don't see. And they just bring so much pressure off the edges that I wonder if this going to be a blitz heavy game, or is this going to be just let John Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel sort of cook his pass rushers, because those are the type of pass rushers that the Cowboys offensive tackles really struggle with. The speed, the bend, the flexibility. Those are the guys that they struggle with. They don't really struggle with power guys. They struggle with the speed around the corner. That's how Al-Qadim Muhammad had 3 sacks in this game.
Well, Nate Thomas struggles with kind of everybody, and it looks like he's going to be playing again at left tackle for Tyler Guy.
Nate Thomas struggles with the average gust of wind. But I do think that this game could be a big one for the Vikings pass rush. But on the flip side, can the Vikings block this group up front? I think that's a really big question on the interior. Can they block the Cowboys up front? Which something I didn't think that we'd be asking this late in the season, given the experience that the Vikings have on the interior offensive line. But I don't know if they can block those guys.
And they may not be having Christian Darrisaw playing in this one themselves. So both teams may be without their left tackle. I just want to see what 9 we get. That's all I care about in this one. Cowboys have a lot at stake. So the odds 21% versus 4%. So if they lose this, it's over. I think everyone knows Cowboys have to win out. That's it. They got to win out. There's a chance. Obviously, if the Eagles keep going south, there's a even stronger chance. But 21% with the win, 4% with a loss. I think they win. I don't like the over in this one at all, though. 47.5 feels like way too much. I know the Cowboys defense is the Cowboys defense, but like 9 is also 9. And I think with Nate Thomas starting at left tackle, I don't think the Cowboys offense is the same unit. And then you have CeeDee Lamb coming off concussion. Who knows how he'll be? All those reasons I like the under.
I sort of think the Vikings got a good shot in this game.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think 6.5 is too much.
If 9 can't play well against this secondary and this coverage, I am so ready to pack it up. I'm ready to get, okay, this just isn't going to happen. Because the thing that the Cowboys have done is they've given up explosives. They've given up a lot of big plays. They're one of the 3 teams in the NFL that have given up the most plays, 20-plus yards. Like, they do that a lot. So I just wonder, like, can you get something going as a passing game? It's going to be tough to run the ball, especially on this in defensive interior. Can you throw the ball against this defense, especially because you have the advantage? This could be a big Justin Jefferson game if you want it to be. It's just 9 has to be calm. He's got to be more controlled. And if he can play a little more within himself, like he did last week, I think he's got a good shot.
All right, Dolphins at Steelers. Steelers 3.5-point favorites. 42.5 points is the over/under. Big news here. The big storyline here is obviously the fact that on Monday Night Football, 19 degrees is going to be the game time kickoff. 7-mile-per-hour wind, so not super windy, but Tua last week in the weather. I mean, I know they blew out the Jets, but 127 passing yards, 13-21. Can Tua shake his cold weather blues against the Steelers in a game that, like, they've been the better team over the past month, but can he against the Steelers team?
I don't think he'll have to. I think the Steelers' run defense is awful. Like, Mike McDaniel is going to throw so much crazy shit at this Steelers defense, where I think it was a play against the Jets. They had like a double sidecar, like reverse play. I think they're going to have their head spinning a little bit. I think Aaron Brewer I'm ready to consider Aaron Brewer like for one of the all-pro spots at center. He has been that good, especially as the engine to the run game and his movement skills getting to the second level. I think he has been such an important part of that offense. Devon Achane's having a great year, but I think Mike McDaniel does such a good job at just designing the run game to attack the edges of the defense and attack over-aggressive edges, which is exactly what the Steelers have. They have a bunch of over-aggressive edges. I feel like they can hit the edge. I think they can really get downhill in their run game. And very quietly, Anthony Weaver's turned this defense around. I think they're creating turnovers at a higher rate. They're able to just play a little bit more control. Jordan Phillips has been really good as a run defender. And Kenneth Grant's starting to come along a little well. I sort of think the Dolphins win this game. I don't know if I can really trust Aaron Rodgers to do what he did last week, and I don't really like the Steelers' run game as much, or the inconsistencies of their run game.
I just don't trust. I don't trust Tua. I flat out don't. Give me his interception prop right now. Is that -108 for an interception? I need to add that to one of my locks. I swear that's one of my locks. He's going to throw a pick. He might throw like 2 or 3. I just don't think in the cold weather in Pittsburgh he has a good game. I just don't. That's the only thing. I think the Dolphins are the better team. If this was in Miami, I'd pick them to win by like 6.5. But in Pittsburgh, I've seen enough. I've seen too much, in fact, of Tua in cold, bad weather to know that it just doesn't end up going well.
I'm willing to fall for it again. You can laugh.
I hope he figures it out.
If they lose, feel free. Laugh at me. I think the Dolphins have enough run game, enough defense to make this one a little bit closer, and I think that they can win it.
Tua needs to start doing cold tub every morning, cryotherapy, Cold
You know
showers,
how
like
you
just
know how people
immerse
like
yourself.
dip their hands into like sand or something, or like in the karate movies they punch trees.
Yeah.
I feel like Tua needs to put his hands into like ice water with like a football in his hand, just like really try and get himself used to the cold weather.
He needs one of those extended freezers that they have in like commercial restaurants, and he just needs to like throw in it all day long.
Like
don't even let him
a meat
practice.
locker.
Yeah, put a VR headset on and have him practice in a meat locker before the game. Like that's it. That's your one fatal flaw for this Dolphins team right now. All right, last game. Falcons at Bucks. Bucks 4.5-point favorites, 44.5 points. And the one thing the Bucks don't want to see right now coming to town is Kirk Cousins after what he did to them last season. You see the numbers there on your screen. 8 touchdowns in 2 games, darn near 800 yards between those two. He was just carving up Todd Bowles' defense, and he's back. And the Bucks are reeling. How do we see this one going?
So I just want to go back to that 509-yard performance, because that was one of the highest passing game. That was the passing game last season with the most passing yards. Do you want to know what the other, like the top 5 of passing yards in a single game last year were?
It's probably old Joe Burrow, the rest of them.
Joe Burrow was number 4 and 5. He had 428 in the 35-34 loss against the Ravens. And then the Broncos on Monday Night Football, he had 412. Jared Goff in the 48-42 loss to the Bills had 494. But number 2, throwing for 497 yards against the Broncos, was Jameis Winston.
Oh, yeah.
In the Jameis game where he threw 2 pick sixes. Like that, Jameis and Kirk Cousins had the 2 best passing performances of the year last year by passing yards. It's good. This game is going to be really interesting because even in those games that Kirk Cousins threw for 509 yards and also beat the Bucks, Drake London in the first game had 154 yards on 13 targets. Then in the next game that they played against the Bucks, Drake London also went off in that game. Drake London, I believe, had another like 100-yard performance. So I'm just sort of, it's going to come down to like, if Drake London doesn't play, like, I don't know. It could get real. It could get real funny. Kyle Pitts had 91 yards in that second game against the Bucks. But I think what Kirk Cousins does so well is he's at the point where he knows every pass coverage. He's seen it all. He might not have the strong arm, but when he's kept clean, he's able to attack a lot of these voids where a lot of the sim pressures are leaving. The Bucks pass rush and the Bucks defense has really been bad during this final stretch of the season. Yeah. And they're having to rely a little bit more on the sim pressures and on the blitzes. And that leaves them open to attack the voids where defensive linemen are. That's sort of what Kirk Cousins did against the Bucks last year. Even without Drake London, I feel like this is going to be a big game for Kirk potentially. Darnell Mooney in the first 509-yard performance led the team in targets with 16 targets. So this might be a big Darnell Mooney game as well, but they get Mike Evans back. And I think that's going to mean a lot for this Bucs offense.
We've talked about it all season, the Mike Evans factor, ever since it happened. If they can't cover this and look like a competent offense yet again, it's just like, hey, it doesn't matter if they make the playoffs. It's over for them. But that's really all I care about in this one is how they look tonight with Mike Evans back. Because if they're the team we've seen the past few weeks, I think the Falcons win this game, truthfully. Like I think Kirk carves them up enough because the Bucs offense hasn't done a damn thing of late.
So, offensively, with Mike Evans off the field in Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay career, with Mike Evans on the field since 2023, Baker Mayfield has a 0.12 EPA per dropback, 48.4% success rate, 10.3% explosive pass rate per dropback. So they're just more explosive with Mike Evans on the field. Off the field, negative 0.01 EPA per dropback. 44.2% success rate, 8.6% explosive pass rate per dropback. On top of that, Mike Evans needs to do a little bit of work to get to that 1,000-yard streak. He needs 860 yards in 4 games to get to 1,000 yards this season.
Force feed.
He has 2 Panthers games, a Dolphins game, and a Falcons game. I'm not saying he can do it, but I am saying if you want an easier schedule than that, you don't want an easier schedule than that to go get it done.
Wasn't one of Julio's big games against the Panthers? Wasn't his like 300-yarder?
Yes.
Yeah. What's it? Mike Evans 300-yarder.
Let's do it. And you know who's Baker's going to force feed him too. They're going to play buddy ball this entire game.
They did. I mean, they did get it to him last year. That was they kind of finagled that in there at the end of the year. All right, let's get to our locks. Where I'm going Cards Texans under. I'm going Commanders Giants over 46.5. I'm going Isaiah Pacheco over 30.5 rushing yards against the Chargers. Kyle Monungai over 51.5 against the Browns. Kenny Pickett under against the Eagles, and then a Tua interception. JP's going Devon Achane's over 78.5. Brock Purdy over 240.5. The Bears Browns under 38.5. A Devontae Adams anytime tutty. The Dolphins plus 3.5. Quinshon Judkins over 18.5 rushing yards in the cold. And then the Seahawks minus 13.5 against the Colts. Woes be to the Colts. Kyle's picking the Lions-Rams over. The Seahawks minus 13.5 as well. And then a Josh Allen anytime touchdown. There's your locks that were sponsored by Cash App. As you heard me say at the top of the show, new Cash App users can use our code to get free money. Use our code PUSHING. Send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 right in your account. Thank you, Cash App. And thank you to you guys for tuning in. So happy you do every week. So thankful that you do. Until next time, we'll be back on Sunday night. Keep pushing.